Hello, everyone. It's Jesse here. Just wanted to give you a little weekly summary of what I've gathered and gleaned from our fund managers and all the reports that I've been seeing right now for your benefit here. So this will go on for about 6 to 10 minutes, and I'll give you a quick summary so you can go into the weekend with all the information you need. You may notice I've got my isolation haircut. Special thanks to my wife Giselle, so thank you for that. And we'll start off with Bill Chortis' economic overview. So Bill Chortis has been a staple with IG Wealth for a long time, and in the 20 years I've been here in practice, and he's tremendous. He manages the fund managers. He was sharing that the big macroeconomic story of the past week was the price of oil. On April the 20th, the WTI oil had its May futures contract expiring, and that traded at a negative price for the first time ever. So the day started with the oil priced at roughly $18 a barrel, and then the decay happened. It's a result of too much oil being produced, and even though the demand for oil has been virtually destroyed because of COVID-19, there's a much less air travel, there's much less car travel, it's still cheaper at the moment for producers to continue pumping oil than it is for them to stop doing this and to start again later, if you could appreciate that. So with this growing oil glut, there's literally nowhere left to store it, and storage costs are now exceeding the value of the oil itself. So that's what we saw on that. This is an extraordinary situation in the oil industry. It represents another indication of the massive dislocations in the global economy. Again, temporary dislocations. Keep in mind, your fund managers are taking advantage of these as we speak. So this is just a report on what's going on. These dislocations will likely take a while to resolve, so be prepared for more market volatility going forward. This is a bit of a summary going forward from our North American equities team, and just to sort of give you some insight, the team is comprised of 4 smaller boutiques that offer multi-level manager approaches. So one is small companies for small caps, the next is dividend strategies, all cap value, and then US core strategies. Those are the 4 in that group, and this is affecting essentially all your portfolios. So what they do naturally is they build models of companies to help them determine their intrinsic risk with the companies themselves. And they do, naturally, they engage with management and teams on boards, but on top of that, they also pay considerable attention to environmental, social issues, and governance. You've heard this before, ESG. And what happens is that in this due diligence process, they're looking for good quality businesses that take an ESG consideration seriously to help mitigate some of the risks that they face. Now, as an aside, we've seen before that ESG companies tend to have a better experience, a better growth over the long term. So this is a very smart move. It's not just nice thing to do for the fund. It's actually a very profitable thing for you as well. And as we experience now the biggest economic contraction since the Great Depression, investors, a lot of them are worried. Some are in a panic state. Just to give yourselves a pat on the back, no one in my practice, none of you have left the market, which is tremendous, because this is really where the money is going to be made, sticking around for the rebounds here. It really is quite something. But in response to this, you've seen it, governments worldwide have been very impressive with their breadth, size, and speed of monetary and fiscal stimulus measures. And just a word on the banks that came out. The Canadian banks are not expected to suspend their dividends. This is from what this team was saying. And unlike some of the European banks, which may be doing that, the difference here is that Canadian banks are generally more profitable than the European banks, and they maintain stronger relationships with their domestic regulators. And in Canada, the regulators have lowered capital requirements as a form of relief to give banks more financial flexibility. And in turn, what's happening is the banks are able to support customers who may need loan or mortgage deferrals in these difficult economic conditions. As a personal aside, your situation may change from day to day individually, so feel free to reach out to me If you've got any individual challenges, reach out to my office, speak to Margaret or myself. I'll take your call certainly, and we'll make sure that you can weather this storm well. Everyone has my cell phone number as an aside, 647-407-5377, so we could talk further on that as things show up for you. And the Mackenzie team that we're talking about here has built financial models to stress test the Canadian banks, and they believe that the banks' dividends are sustainable and capital levels are acceptable. And they think that it's very unlikely that the banks may cut dividends to make capital available for customer relief efforts. But even if they have to cut dividends, they feel that this is not going to affect their long-term outlook on the Canadian banks. So just something to keep in mind. Historically, when we shift over to the Canadian energy sector, where this call we took on the Canadian energy sector, it's been highly entrepreneurial and has created considerable value. But these days, the energy sub-indexes make only a fraction of the S&P and the TSX composite index's overall value. It reflects how far the industry has fallen. So for those of you who've been working with me for the past 20 years, you'll note that when the markets crashed in 2008, 2009, and especially in 2000 to 2002, the Canadian energy sector had a much larger scope. So that when that sector went down, it had a much bigger impact. And right now, it's not having that similar impact. So it's a nice thing to consider. The outlook going forward. For the North American equities team from Mackenzie, they piped in about this. They feel that investors appear more optimistic now that the COVID-19 curve may be flattening in key regions, while markets have been rebounding as economies will gradually reopen in certain key areas around the world. In late March, as markets were reacting to what is presumed to be this bottom, the team used this period of extreme market dislocation to increase their high quality holdings at attractive prices and improve diversification. You've heard from me on this before. You've heard from some of the videos I've sent out. This is a universal theme for the fund managers that we incorporate. They're taking advantage of this great time to buy things on the cheap, look at companies that they may not have looked at before, and now they recognize how good of a value they are. They're using such things as puts and calls. You're not going to see a lot of this benefit right now, but when the markets recover and go back up, you're going to see the results of these efforts here to keep you posted. Now, initially, the team was anticipating a sharp V-shaped recovery. So it will go up and it will go down and come up in a sharp V. But now they believe the recovery will take longer and will be linked to healthcare developments regarding the COVID-19. Now, they expect very weak economic data for the next quarter or two. Keep in mind, this is economic data. Markets are leading indicators, the financial markets, and they rebound well before the economic data presents itself. You've heard me say that before. The team invests in high quality stocks with attractive margins of safety and sustainable dividends. They take a bottom-up perspective, and effective diversification remains a key priority. And they're not planning on making any large sector bets and instead focus on long-term values. That's a common thread that I'm seeing for these fund managers when I get on these calls. I'll shift gears over here and address your plan directly. Just to let you know, each one of you as my clients, you have a plan. We've designed the plan. We've put this together. The decline that we're experiencing now is temporary, but the advance, as you know, especially in our working time over the past 20 years, the advance is permanent. Think of it, and I love the strategy of this analogy. It's like when you're walking up a hill playing with a yo-yo. The yo-yo is going to be going up and down, but you're gradually going to be going up even as you're experiencing the markets increasing and decreasing. The overall trend is upwards. Next thing over here is that governments are committed to supporting business. You've seen that in the news reports that come out every day. It's very encouraging. I could operate my business remotely and effectively between Margaret and myself, and I know the markets are going to react well before the news gets better. So until then, we've got everything efficiently set up here for whatever needs that you have. We don't know when the markets will get better or when the data will get better, but we're going to work through this together. In the interim, the fund managers are stress testing everything. Your plan has been built for these type of volatile measures, where your portfolios are being rebalanced. Your fund managers are taking this time to rebalance things, and it's being done to your advantage. In fact, this rebalancing has happened for years and years beforehand, but especially in volatile times now like this, you're going to see a good benefit from this rebalance when the recovery happens. And it's a great time to top things up if you have the resources available. TFSAs, RSPs, non-registered accounts. I've had a lot of my clients with activity where they're putting more money in, and it's wonderful to take advantage of that if you can. But again, don't expect any big quick returns on this. This is long-term money, so happy to speak with you individually to see if it's right for you, and if we can build that properly into your plan. I know you're going to have a lot of questions. My team and I are equipped to support you through this, so call if you need. You've got my cell phone number. You've got our emails over here. I just wanted to finish on one thing here, is I encourage you overall not to be someone who's going to look back at this in 2 years and say, I wish I did more to take advantage of this crisis. Now, I'm not just talking about putting more money in and taking advantage of the sale. I'm talking about in general. Take a moment and look to see what you could use your time for, so that you're taking advantage. Introspection, learning, anything that will set you further ahead in 2 years from now. And I find that there's 2 questions that I ask myself that helps me reframe things. In fact, I have them posted up here. Ask yourself what COVID is giving you right now, and why is life doing this for you rather than doing this to you? Asking from that point of view, it sets a different tone for the answers. It really puts you in a different place to position yourself to take advantage of things if you're in a position to do that. So happy to share with you what I learned further this week. If you have any questions, let me know, and happy to support you as we go through this together. Thank you, and enjoy your weekend.